What is up, homies? Welcome to a review from Heroes Reforged. This will be a non-spoiler review of Superman. I'm very excited to talk about this movie. We're going to do a non-spoiler because we wanted to drop this a little earlier rather than waiting a whole 5 days to talk about just spoilers. So if you want to watch the spoiler review, subscribe, hit the like.
Separate video. Separate video. Not going to happen here.
Not yet. Not yet. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And we don't normally do a non-spoiler and a spoiler, but I think Superman warranted
I mean,
2 videos.
This movie's been the biggest topic of conversation for the past year and a half at this point for us.
Perhaps 3 years, if you're counting the time that James Gunn took over DC.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. I have had the opportunity to now see the film twice
in 2 days.
Yeah.
Nice. Lucky duck.
You like
we
that?
literally just got out of
Listen, you got to go to the press junket.
Yeah,
dude,
very nice.
You got to meet James
And you
Gunn.
got to tell Jaime Pistolas, we need a tres des.
That's right.
Come on.
He said, I hear you. So we'll see.
Has security escorted you out of there?
He looked at you like you were insane, Hector.
Yeah, he did.
It was worth it.
Because I didn't move from that handshake
Yeah.
until I knew. I'm like, let me get this sentence out.
You grabbed
3D.
him.
But then as soon as he was scared, he was deer in the headlights. But then
Yeah.
as soon as he understood what I was saying, he was like, oh, this is fun. This is funny.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's have fun, man. And then he was teasing me, and then it was funny, and then it was all good, and everybody in the room was laughing because I think they were all relieved.
Okay, good.
And they were like, "Oh, okay, he's just a big nerd.
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
This is okay."
Oh, this guy collects Blu-rays.
This nerdy guy is not dangerous.
He didn't let our director go, but this is all he cared about. This is fine. And they were laughing, and they were patting me on the back. They were like, "Great job!" Like as I was walking out the room.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Security?
So before we get into the non-spoiler review, tell us about that day because that's a special day.
Really
that you
special
got
day.
that you got to talk to Superman
to the screening or just the press day.
the press day because you got to talk to Superman and Lois.
You got to go to the Daily Planet.
Yeah, you got to
that
go
was
to
really
the Daily
fun.
Planet.
I got a little video up on our stuff, in our Instagrams and TikTok. But damn it, I made it 4 minutes, not 3 minutes. So YouTube was like, no thanks, we don't want a short. I'm like, oh my god, it's so annoying, dude. That's so annoying, dude. Anyway, cool day, really
You
cool
are
day.
so much like Clark Kent.
I know.
Yes, I am. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So I got to chat with some of those actors, and I got to chat with James Gunn, and I really love talking to James Gunn because like I've gotten so many comments from that interview and
It's great.
from a few clips where people are like, yo, this guy gets it. I think my favorite moment was when he was talking about kind of the difference between Marvel and DC. And this is a difference that is not bashing one and praising the other, but the way he kind of laid it out, I was like, dude, I agree. And I love both with all my heart. And the way he was describing what DC Comics did, where from the sort of 80s, 90s up until about 2006 and still today, but in that little era, start focusing on graphic novels and like these, like he described it, Elseworlds, which is what they were. They're not technically in continuity, but they're
post-crisis era,
And I threw out because I'm like vibing with exactly what he's saying, and I threw out the word because he goes, Marvel didn't have that. Marvel just had like their basic universe was awesome. Which is true. Their canon, their like continuity is like second to none. It's great. They're the top of the top. Whereas DC's continuity is always a little. They're like always kind of like even now
Rebooting
they just
a little bit,
they
yeah.
just
They just
came out with
rebooted it.
They just came out with a new comic book series that Mark Waid is writing, where it's called The New History of the DC Universe, because he's like, okay, let me actually make sense of this one more time. But when James Gunn was talking about those differences, and he goes, but DC had the graphic novels, and I said the standalones. And then he's like, yeah, the standalone. Like he just picked up what I said and was like, yeah. So DC had the standalones and Marvel had their universe. And I was like, yeah. Like it just felt like like two people that know comics talking comics.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was a really
You guys hit that same wavelength.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Because I could tell like what I could tell that he knew what I was trying to ask, which is basically like, obviously you're never gonna give me a spoiler or some like exclusive. You know, no juicy exclusive, but it's like, but you know that I'm here with Nerdist and I want to ask about, you know, where in the comics you're comfortable, because it might give us a clue to where this is going. And then he kind of was like, you'll know where I'm going once you see Peacemaker season 2. And I was like, oh, okay, cool then. Like then we have that to look forward to. Yeah. But then he said that everything's sort of on the table because he talked about each era of DC Comics in a way where he goes, even the stuff I read as a kid, which is childlike, it's childish. You can't read it as an adult really, but the way it makes you feel.
Yeah.
And then he goes, and I like Super Friends.
Yeah.
you know, and so it made me start thinking like, we're going to get the Legion of Doom versus the Super Friends or the Justice League. We're going to get Lex Luthor and Gorilla Grodd and Toyman and Sinestro and Solomon Grundy and Giganta and this like classic lineup. Anyway, it was just cool to know that he wants to do everything DC Comics that is good. But the difference is, instead of it being all standalones, it's like, but it is all in a shared universe, the way Marvel's movies work and the way Marvel Comics work. Because it is kind of, frankly, I understand that the benefit and the minus of it, but like if you hand somebody All-Star Superman as a comic book, very interesting comic, very cool, very unique, you know, very heartfelt, and it's a celebration of Superman, especially the Silver Age. But there's no sequel to it. There's no part 2.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like when people complain about the difference between manga and like Western comics, you know, well, manga's easy because it's just volume 1 through 20, whatever, or volume 1 through 100, and I'm going. And I'm like, okay, so you want that. And they're like, well, yeah, okay, I can give you that for Superman. It's just different volume numbers. It's just like a different path.
Yeah.
But if I hand somebody All-Star Superman, it's so removed.
Right.
So James is finding those inspirations from the standalones, but then still being like, but also
because they all still play into the mythos of Superman.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Anyway, that's what that day was like. It was super, super
good
cool.
day. I think that's good context.
And then I pet some puppies.
Oh, you got the poopies?
The puppies
were so cute, dude. The puppies.
Goddamn.
Were they colored light tan?
Yes.
They were light tan.
They had dude, when they put capes on them, I was like, off, dude, this is so cute. And they were fighting the capes and like chewing them off and wrestling with each other.
That's fun.
It
Yeah.
was a great day.
It was a great day.
It was a great day.
I think that's important context to know where we're coming from, because now you've met James Gunn and you've spoken to the actors. Adam, you've seen the movie twice. This was my first watch of the movie.
Yeah.
And so we're all coming in with a kind of a unique experience with all of this.
You're setting up the internet to not trust me because I'm not being honest with my review.
No, not at all.
Shell.
Not
paid by
By the way,
Brothers.
Can we announce that we're Rotten Tomatoes certified now?
Well, now you've really fucked this review.
We haven't been officially
Someone just slipped $1 through this.
I know, right?
So I haven't been accepted, but it's in the works. It's in the process.
Yeah.
It's been finalized.
Okay, so let's get into it, guys. Okay. Adam, you've seen this movie twice.
No, you got to start with him.
Okay,
we got to start with you. You're the freshest, and you've seen it one time.
I'm the freshest, and I've seen it one time.
I'm dying.
Mark, what's your opinion?
What do we start with?
It's Alex's turn to talk.
Yeah.
All right, so I feel like
also just really important. I feel like you came into Superman late in the game.
Yeah,
you were kind of like lukewarm on the character.
So I have my background with Superman is I read the same one, The Greatest Stories Ever Told, and I really loved those stories. And I came into Superman. The only one comic book that I read was The Death of Superman. That's when I first paid attention to Superman, because the book was all over the place.
Yeah.
It was on the news.
It's pretty good.
It was,
story.
and I bought it at
PTLA was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it was on the news. Even in my small town, it was on the news, right? And so I remember going to Costco. I remember buying the 2-pack of books, which was The Greatest Stories Ever Told and The Death of Superman. And so that was kind of like my introduction. And then I never really kind of gave Superman a second thought after that phase, kind of. And so I think the context for my love of Superman comes from Superman and Lois, which we just watched for the channel.
Did he tell us?
It's the brand new bar for Superman. So I came in with that kind of rattling inside my head. And this is a very different tone from that.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. It's a very, very different tone.
You're right.
Because Superman and Lois is Superman dad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Superman kids.
Very different story too.
Superman dealing with his wife and sickness and illness and things like that, and things that are way out of his control, which is kind of what this movie is as well. But I had that rattling inside of my head. So at first it was kind of jarring when I came into this universe. Then I had to remind myself, oh, this is James Gunn. Clearly, he's setting a completely different tone for what we're about to see. And once I started thinking about it in the context of how I thought of Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time, I was like, well, all of this makes sense now.
Yeah.
All of this makes so much sense now. Okay. And so it did take me a little bit to kind of get into the groove of what the movie was saying. And so once I kind of got that, I was like, okay, well, we're in this universe. Seeing what Superman and what Clark Kent is dealing with in his personal life, seeing what's going on in the greater world, seeing that we're kind of getting a Superman that's not necessarily new, but is kind of new, was actually really cool. I feel like there were some moments where maybe the impact could have been a little bit harder. But then I also realized that this movie is really just setting the tone for the future. This movie is, I don't want to call it setup because it's not a lot of setup.
Yeah,
it's not, I mean, it is setup, but it's not setup. I think it kind of serves the purpose that Creature Commando served, right? Like watching all of that really kind of let us know what kind of playground we're playing in. And I feel like that was the overall feeling that I got from this movie, where we have so many things kind of being introduced all at once. And I don't feel like it was too much because we're so used to everything happening in the MCU and it's being told by a creator that we already know can put all these things together.
right.
And it gave me the feeling that I am going to feel for Superman like I did for Groot at the end of Guardians 3. But it's going to take a while to get there.
Groot or Rocket Raccoon?
I'm sorry, Rocket Raccoon. Sorry,
sure.
Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah,
Because
we love Groot, but Crypto's more
yeah,
the Groot.
sorry. Yeah,
Crypto's kind of Groot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be feeling for Superman and Clark Kent by the end of whatever arc we see, like I felt for the Guardians, because I didn't really enjoy I enjoyed Guardians 1, but I was like, okay, that was a movie. And
you talked about how Guardians 3, how hard it hit you.
Guardians 3 hit me hard because I realized it was the culmination of these three movies, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's kind of we're treading down a similar path with this movie.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see some things realized.
Okay.
I'm saying, just some things realized.
Right.
I feel like there was some things that could have hit a little bit harder. Maybe some characters that I wish would have been portrayed a little bit differently.
I have one of those too.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in the spoiler.
we'll talk about that in the spoilers.
I wanted to segue because Adam, in your sort of non-spoiler posts and stuff online the past day, you said that you felt like this is James Gunn throwing everything in there in terms of you felt like maybe James Gunn felt like I might not ever make another Superman movie.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Agustin, you're saying like, well, there might still be a chance for an emotional payoff in a future story. And I kind of feel like you guys are both right. Like when I read what you posted or when I saw your video where you're like, this feels like it can be, the plot is maybe a little too much sometimes. I was like, I get that. I get that it does feel like he's going all out.
Absolutely.
But then what you're saying and how you're talking about the difference between Guardians 1 to 2 to 3 is getting my brain thinking. And I'm like, that is very exciting for me because I do feel like he has to be thinking about the long term.
Of course.
Right? In some way.
That's what I feel about this movie because he did set up some things. Yeah. Some long shots on some characters where you're like, oh, that's going to pay off. Not now.
Right.
But it's going to pay off.
Several years.
But I'll
I'll
also say, I mean, everybody knows some of the side characters that are in the movie, like Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, Metamorpho. I still feel like they're all serving the purpose of this story. Versus like they're clearly shoehorned in because they're going to make a Metamorpho.
Well, yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I still feel like they're well used in this story.
Yeah, yeah.
That is self-contained enough that like, yeah, we could see them again, but it didn't feel forced for them to be in there. Does that make sense? I don't want to use a specific example I'm thinking of, but other superhero movies that have done that where you're like, oh my God, that's forced.
I feel like the use of the other superheroes was very purposeful and very appropriate for this story that was told.
Okay.
Specifically, Mr. Terrific, standout character. I really loved what they did with Mr. Terrific.
So good.
It was so good. I feel like I really enjoyed what they did with Crypto.
Yeah.
Guy Gardner was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I want to see more of Hawkgirl. That's for sure.
Me
like
too,
that
me
character
too.
for sure is something that I want to see more of.
Uh-huh.
But overall, I left the movie feeling hopeful about Superman's future. I wasn't head over heels over this movie.
Okay.
I heard some people saying this movie was like the brand new whatever, like
the gold
so highly of it. I would still put Superman and Lois above this.
Whoa!
I would still put Superman and Lois above this project.
Man,
but
producer Mark, that's going to make producer Mark happy, or yeah.
I will say this can go in that direction.
Oh yeah.
Because season 1 of Superman and Lois also didn't hit me as hard as
a later season.
the later
Yeah.
seasons,
Season
right?
3 especially.
Season 3
Bet- between-
and 4.
the finish of season
just
4.
season 1 of Superman and Lois and this movie Superman.
Right, exactly. Like if you're comparing
what would
them,
you do that?
I would say this movie.
Me too.
Right?
Me
Like,
too.
because I remember leaving season 1 of Superman and Lois saying, I'm not
okay.
sure I have to watch this to the end. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, once again, I wasn't head over heels over that project either.
Yeah.
But once I saw the finished story, it's one of the
And-
greatest
and-
Superman adaptations
And
ever
3
made.
and 4 really landed it.
Absolutely. 3
Okay.
and 4, the writers were flexing, they knew the characters.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is going to happen not only with Superman, but the upcoming DC projects as
Yeah.
well.
The universe.
It's really exciting. I think this was a great way to kind of kick off the universe.
yeah.
You said that they threw a lot of stuff at the wall. Not all of it worked, but overall, I think it was the correct way to really kind of get us used to James Gunn's vision of this superhero universe and what he wants to set up and how he wants to let other directors kind of play in the sandbox as well. Yeah, overall, great movie, 4.5 out of 5. Not a
Wow.
perfect movie,
Okay.
but yeah.
That's a good score.
It's a good score.
very
The
good.
movie is fantastic, and I don't want to
Yeah.
make it sound like I didn't like this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
But you're talking about a sort
I
of
had a lot
personal
of fun.
connection that you're like, maybe it'll happen harder later.
exactly, and we'll
Yeah.
get into it in the spoiler talk. But there was some things that didn't take me out of the movie, but
Yeah.
I wish were a lot stronger.
Did you get emotional at all? At any point? And you can say no, that's totally fine.
I did, but I don't.
You remember?
Think
I have one moment. We'll share it for the spoiler, but I have
Well, I don't really think it's a spoiler because it's in. They show bits of it in the trailer, but there's
Okay.
a really sweet, tender moment between Pa Kent and Clark
Oh, dude.
outside of the
Yeah,
house
yeah,
of
yeah,
Swallow
yeah.
that I thought was
Some of
like
that-
really good.
Some of that really
Yeah.
hit me
Yeah,
hard.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is really good stuff. Making me emotional.
You son of a bitch.
Dads and sons. Okay, great. Okay. I'll share my quick thoughts and then I want to end with Adam because you're number one Superman fan, so you got to finish us off. I really love this movie. I agree with everything you said. I'm very excited about the future. I think that I saw some great reviews and videos and stuff already out from the movie that's not spoiler stuff, but them kind of formulating their thoughts. And I'm like, ooh, I actually agree with that. I think I kind of like that. It at times it feels Silver Age with some of the goofiness with like there's giant kaiju and this and that sci-fi, which is very goofy. But I do think that some of the tone is like, this is surprisingly modern. It's just, right. It's again, even like 70s Superman, people think that's old fashioned. Dude, you go back and watch that. That's a very cynical world that the Christopher Reeve comic book character is stepping into this Richard Donner modern. So I was really happy with some of those, some of that tone and some of those messaging that we're getting from the film. I love all the side characters. Yeah, I just kept thinking about the DCAU. I kept thinking about like Justice League Unlimited. I'm like, guys, I think this might be it. Like this is the closest we've gotten to Justice League Unlimited. And Justice League Unlimited and those shows leading up to that, Batman, the
S-tier.
animated series, S tier,
Yeah,
the gold
absolutely.
standard, on par or better still than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And now it's like, fucking finally, can we get a group of storytellers led by James Gunn, but feels almost like led by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and Dwayne McDuffie and all these amazing writers and producers that understood DC Comics, the whole universe, and not just a character. Made me so happy and very excited about the future. And yeah, I also had a great time. And I don't know if it's a better film than like the original Superman movie. Objectively, I don't.
Apples and oranges, I think. They're
Yeah,
completely
but-
different.
but you
It
can
also,
still.
I think it's also depending on the baggage you bring,
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
which this bitch brought baggage.
Yes, and I'm like, and I think that this is going to become sort of like my Superman.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The way that like Daniel Craig is my James Bond.
Sure.
Like however people feel about every Bond, they're all great. You can love any era and you're gonna love the era that you grew up with and whatever. And I don't know if this is objectively impossible to even say that. The best Superman solo film.
Yeah.
But it's for me, it's up there 1 and 2 with the original. I think it's better than Superman Returns, Man
Yeah.
of Steel,
Yeah.
anything, right? Any of the animated stuff that comes to mind. But like, is this movie better than Superman and Lois, the TV show? I don't know. Is this movie
As a whole, no.
Is this movie better than like Superman the animated series going into Justice League
Right.
Unlimited? I'm like, oh, I'm gonna cheat. If I
Yeah.
took that whole
Yeah.
thing, I'm like, maybe
If I
not.
just took the 3-part pilot and rated against
yeah,
that,
yeah. I'm like,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
So, but God, what a great like depiction of this character that was corny and empathetic and compassionate and
I really connected with Clark Kent and Superman is what I was completely was able to.
He's my guy.
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the cool guy. I would hang out with him. I would want to hang out with him.
Totally.
For sure. And I think that's really why I rate this movie so high, because I like that guy.
Yeah,
I want to hang out with him.
Yeah, man.
I'm never going to, but I'm rooting for him. You know?
I kind of did for a little bit with that actor. I'm like, this motherfucker's Superman.
Yeah,
like,
he's cool as fuck, man.
So cool.
He's cool as fuck.
His dorky answer of like, I like listening to air traffic control. You listen to that on YouTube. I'm like, you're a dork, dude. That's amazing.
You decide Star Wars and listen to air traffic control. You are a nerd. Sir.
So Adam, finish us off. Non-spoiler thoughts. What did you think about the movie?
So I did bring a lot of baggage to this movie because, as I mentioned in my Instagram review, I grew up with the Christopher Reeve films, though that has, for the most part, been my Superman.
Yeah. And
I also love the animated series, Justice League, all that stuff. Smallville was a big part of my like teen years growing up. So it's really hard to leave that at the door when you're coming into a brand new Superman movie. It was the same for Man of Steel. I brought all that baggage with me too. But going into it, I thought, okay, try your best to not let all of that stuff, all of your history with the character affect you too much, because it will, no matter what, affect me.
Oh, yeah.
The thing that I think right off the bat I really like about the movie is that we're stepping into the DC universe as the audience. They're not trying to bring the DC universe into our real world.
Well said.
And I think that even the Christopher Reeve movie, to some extent, is trying to treat it like Superman comes into our world. In Man of Steel, he comes into our world. And I think you can obviously do that and it can be successful. I think Superman and Lois in some ways feels like it's a little bit of a mixture of both, where you're stepping into the universe, but also it feels like it's playing in our realistic universe.
It's pretty grounded. And again, in that universe, they're the only superheroes.
They are.
Right? There's no Supergirl or Green Arrow or whatever.
No Arrowverse, So, but I think because of the stylistic choices that have been made, not even just with Superman, but Creature Commandos and Peacemaker Season 1, even though it's not technically whatever continuity stuff, it really feels like, oh, as the audience member, I'm sitting and watching a window into something. And for the first time in maybe ever, since the animated series Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, I feel like we're going to, without a doubt, be in a universe where all of the DC characters exist together.
Thank God.
Which that is a great feeling to have, because I think that's something that people like us have wanted ever since we were kids. Whether it was Justice League Unlimited, Challenge of the Super Friends, whatever, you want to see these characters come together on screen all at once to defeat the Legion of Doom or whoever it is. So that made me feel really good. And the other thing that I really liked about the movie was the tone. My preference, or the Superman that I prefer, is one who is incredibly optimistic and is incredibly hopeful and is just trying to do good because he feels like it's the right thing to do. So seeing that and seeing the character portrayed that way, and honestly, even having the character say it out loud, to really drill it into the audience's head that this is the direction we're taking this character, made me feel really good, because it is my preferred take on the character. And there are things about Man of Steel that I really, really like, but it's a very different type of movie. It's trying to bring Superman into our world and make him realistic. Sometimes some of that stuff really works for me, and sometimes it makes character choices that I fundamentally disagree with, and that's fine. But with this one, all the choices that the character makes in the context of the film are choices that feel very Superman to me. And when it comes to the goofiness of the tone, or embracing the really like Silver Age aspects of the character, I think it really works. Because aside from Superman himself working, David Corenswet is just that guy. Like, you hear him and Rachel Brosnahan talk about social media, and he's like, yeah, I don't really keep up with that. And literally in the movie, he says Superman doesn't deal with selfies. And you're like, it's the same guy. He literally stepped off into real life, into the comic book universe.
So funny.
So I think a lot of that stuff really works well for me. And Mr. Terrific is such a standout in that goddamn movie. Him and Krypto are really, really good. When it comes to Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl, I like elements of what we get to see from them, but also I didn't feel like there was enough for me to feel like they needed to be in the movie.
Okay.
Green Lantern more so maybe than Hawkgirl. It's not necessarily Hawkgirl the character. It's just the way that she was written. I love Isabela Merced. We all love Isabela Merced.
course.
She's great. I wish that James Gunn would have maybe given her a little bit more to have. Trying to see what
I
else.
feel
is
like
not
it's
a
just a
spoiler.
small tease. I feel like
It
that's
is.
just a
Well, and
small
that's the
tease.
thing too, is like I have to in my brain remind myself, oh no, we're going to pay this off.
Yeah,
Right.
Because
exactly.
I think previously going into any DC movie, my maybe somewhat cynical self would be like, well, we're never going to see this get paid off. So who cares?
Yeah.
But now, for the first time, I feel like, okay, we're planting some of these seeds. I think some of these things would have been okay to not have in this movie in favor of doing maybe more things with Superman and Lois or more things with other characters. And we could revisit those things in the future. But because they'll be paid off, I'm a little bit more forgiving.
Yeah.
The other thing that I struggled with, but it played a little bit better for me in this second viewing was the pacing of the movie.
Okay.
Because the first time that as I'm watching the movie, I'm going, God damn, this movie is just scene to scene to scene to scene to scene. And I'm like, can we just breathe? Can we just breathe for a minute?
Take a minute.
And that's something that I think Superman and Lois does incredibly well, especially when there's moments where Superman and Lois are just talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's 3 major scenes where Superman and Lois have conversations in this film that I think is that moment to just breathe.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to have seen a little bit more throughout the movie just taking a little bit of a pause. And I'm not asking the movie to just take a break for the sake of taking one, but I think I don't know, maybe this is just my age or whatever. As a viewer, I like when a movie goes really high and then breathes, and then high and then breathes. Sometimes this movie would just kind of keep going up and up and up and up and up, like you're reaching the top of a roller coaster and then go down.
Yeah.
But you know, I get it. I'm a very particular type of movie viewer, and I think for younger audiences especially, it's going to play really well because it's going to keep them fully engaged. What just happened?
Producer Mark.
Ronda Rousey is behind you now.
Yeah.
So I think that was my biggest issue with the movie is that I wish that the movie action fatigue is definitely a good way of putting it. Is breathe a little bit. Let's have a moment. Let's work on some of the characters. Let's build them up a little bit more. You know, someone like Metamorpho or Hawkgirl or Green Lantern or whatever. I think I would have maybe just preferred that. And I don't know if that's, again, just the era of filmmaking that we're in where everything feels like it has to be, well, we got to communicate all this as fast as we can in 128
TikTok
minutes.
style, basically.
TikTok style.
Yeah,
That was my problem with Lilo and Stitch. I definitely don't think that Superman is that bad in terms of editing. But I understand. I'm an older movie viewer now. Those are just my preferences.
I don't even think it's an older viewer.
Maybe not.
I think that's just how you prefer your movies.
Yeah, I think so. And generally speaking, you know, Marvel can also be kind of wishy-washy with it, but there are definitely moments, even in something like Infinity War and Endgame, where they just let you like, whew, let me just absorb all this
what's going
shit
on
that just happened. And Superman, sometimes it just kind of moves a little too fast for my liking. But on the second viewing, I think it played a little bit better for me overall. But that's a tough sell because you have one shot to get the audience member to be on board. So not everyone's going to go see it 4 times like I am. 5 times.
You already have all your tickets set too for every viewing.
I do. 3D, 4DX, ScreenX.
Hell yeah.
Man.
I might do 40X.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
All right.
Review's over. There you go.
There it is.
Report is back.
Tight. But yeah, so overall, I would say I really enjoyed the film. I have some things about it that maybe didn't work as well, but
we're gonna get into
we have to save it for spoilers because if we don't do that, then this will go off the rails real quick.
Yeah.
Guys, this episode is brought to you by Hot Ones. Sean
Apparently,
Evans, he's the greatest.
Ronda
man.
Rousey.
Ronda Rousey, she's all right. She's all right. Action fatigue? ? Yes, Adam addressed it. I think we're in total agreement. Producer Mark, Producer Mark was like scrambling to get that Ronda Rousey video. What happened? Yes. We agree. And we're going to get into it now with our spoiler review. So like Adam said, if you're not already subscribed, please do that to make sure that you don't miss it because it's going to be coming out, the Monday, the Sunday? When are we putting out the spoiler review?
Great question.
Okay.
Just hit the bell and you'll find out.
Fine. Don't miss
figure
it.
it out.
Don't miss
You'll
it.
figure it out.
Do not miss it. Subscribe, hit that bell to get the notification. We'll see you in that video. Bye, guys.
Heroes Reforged is gonna react. Heroes Reforged is gonna review. Heroes Reforged is gonna discuss. That's why we are watching